All right, it's 2:05. That's what I've got. I think it's a good time for us to start rolling here so that we can wrap this thing up in the usual 60-minute parameter. So we'll get going here. So to all of you who have joined us, welcome to the Charleston Online TIM team meeting. Please mute your computer or tablet or wherever you're listening or watching this on and with. And if you've got questions or you need to get a hold of somebody, use the chat feature, please. Every presenter will leave with their email and telephone number, so you'll be able to get a hold of them afterwards if you need to. So next slide, please, ma'am. I know you're there. Here we are. Okay, so this is the last one in a series of 10. Most of you know we do 10 of these meetings in the spring and 10 in the fall. I'm also happy to say, unless things change dramatically, this is the last one that will be online. The fall ones we will get back to face-to-face. The three pictures that are on the bottom of this slide, you can see the one on the lower left. That's a Greenville Team TIM meeting from a couple of years ago. We had Shep come in, do a push-pull-drag demonstration for us. And that was absolutely an excellent program. They showed us the tremendous capabilities that they have. The one in the middle, that's a Rock Hill TIM team meeting. We did a tabletop there. We can do those tabletops for you at a business meeting, an evening training, whenever you want. We can get together and do a tabletop. It's a nice two-dimensional display of what we're talking about when we set up a rec and have the various disciplines come in and where they should be, where they shouldn't be, all of those things. The lower right, that's Howe Springs Fire Department just south of Florence. That truck has now been replaced with a brand new truck. Got 100 traffic cones in the pickup bed and a sign trailer in the back that he tows out to wreck scenes, as well as a signboard that motorizes and flips up, and he can program any message he wants into that. We've got 2 or 3 other departments now who are copying that effort, and that's good to see, because Howe Springs, Chief Dillon there, he makes that package available to any agency that requests it on I-95 or in the Florence area. It doesn't matter, fire, EMS, law enforcement. This stuff is available. They don't cover any of I-95 in their jurisdiction, but they do make this equipment available if somebody needs it. So that's a huge tool to have in that area. Next slide, please. So who are we? We are the first responders that are out there 365 days a year, 24/7. And exposing ourselves to the mayhem and the carnage that's out there all the time. Why are we here? We are here because these TIM team meetings are a great chance for us to network and to share information and to try and help each other so that we're all playing off the same sheet of music. Agencies that are participating today, other than ourselves hosting this program, we will have the Towing and Recovery Association of South Carolina, a nice presentation with some good information there. And we will also have Operation Lifesaver, which will give us some really good information on railway safety. And we ask for all disciplines to have representation at these meetings. It's very, very important that they do. Again, to network, to get to learn who we are. On the scene is the wrong time to be exchanging business cards. We want to be able to walk up and say, hey, Josh, hey, John, how are you doing? Good to see you, man. What do we need to get done here? I mean, it's really good to have these relationships established already. So again, today's agenda, we're going to go through some brief statistics from me, and then a towing and recovery, and then Operation Lifesaver, and then I'm going to talk briefly about what can happen when we don't have a PIO on scene at a wreck and things are set up incorrectly versus correctly. We'll talk briefly about that, and then we'll wrap it up for the spring. So that's basically what we've got. Disciplines, again, most of you are familiar with this: law enforcement, fire, EMS, SHEP, tow and recovery, DOT, DHEC, coroners and deputy coroners. These are the people that we need to participate in these meetings. And when we put on the Sharp 2 training programs, we need these people involved as well. So next slide. This is our Spring Online TIM team meeting for South Carolina. This is the last one of 10, as I mentioned. We are constantly looking for suggestions for topics for future meetings. If you've got something you would like to see covered, please get in touch with us. I know our fall meetings, we had DHEC emergency response people talking about, when you call them, when you don't call them, what they will do, what they can't do. And it was a very informative session. And that was excellent. We had another great presentation on public safety officer distracted driving. So we've had some, and we continue to have some really good presentations in these meetings. We will have them again in October, November. We're going to start very soon putting a schedule together. And these will be, as of right now, they will be in person and following whatever the proper COVID protocol is at the time. Check sctimnetwork.com for updates on the meetings, training dates, locations. Anything that we do goes on the calendar with sctimnetwork.com. If your agency can host a meeting, let me know. Get in touch with me and let me know that you would like to host a meeting. We may even look at going back to the same program we did a couple of years ago, and that was having a TIM team meeting in the morning and then bringing in some Chick-fil-A or pizza or something for everybody and then do a training session in the afternoon. We're thinking that that might work again. So that's something we're looking at doing, and we'd appreciate your feedback as to whether you think that would work or not, or would help or would not help. So anyway, so this is our last meeting. As I said, we've had 10 of these, and Charleston's the last one, not the least. It's certainly one of the most important. And as you'll see in a couple of minutes with some of the statistics here. Next slide, TIM training's picking up again. In the last 4 days, I've scheduled 7 classes in the state. And they're coming in hot and heavy right now. So that's great. I know of at least a couple of counties that have made it mandatory for 100% of their people who would respond in all disciplines to an incident will go through this training. One of them has actually said they'll go through this training once a year, so that's excellent. We're reaching out to them right now and trying to set this up. If your agency would like to host a traffic incident management training session, get a hold of me and we will schedule it daytime, evening, weekend, it doesn't matter, shift. I've done Aiken DPS. I did 4 Tuesdays in a row, just to make sure all 4 squads were covered. All we ask is a minimum of 15 participants with no maximum, and make sure that we invite all disciplines. And until further notice, whatever COVID protocol is in place, we'll certainly follow that. So TIM training program, next slide, please. TIM training program, these numbers actually reflect for South Carolina the end of last year, December 31st. Some of the other states were able to get into the Federal Highway Administration website without any difficulty. I was one of the few states that was not able to get in without some difficulty. I finally have done that now, and they have updated just yesterday. They've updated some of these figures so that 8,676 is not an accurate number for us. I've added about 255. So on the next slide, you'll see that at the end of last year, we were at 60.5%, which isn't bad considering we shut down in March and did not fire back up for several months. And my target was 60%. We still hit at 60.5%. Right now, the numbers they issued yesterday, we're sitting at 62, I think 62.3 or 62.5, something like that. So we're doing better. But whether you're a glass half full or half empty person, if we're at 60%, that means we've still got at least 40% that have not been trained. So we've still got a lot of work to do. Next slide, please. Local statistics, you can see Charleston, and that was as of the 18th. I will tell you, I've got the numbers sitting here on my desk, issued on the 25th. So between the 18th and the 25th in the state of South Carolina, we had 25 traffic fatalities. Charleston County is no longer at 15. They are now at 23. Berkeley County went up 1. They went from 10 to 11. Unbelievable how bad this is right now. I mean, when we had the COVID, we had a lot of people exercising their ability to have a lead foot on wide open highways because the traffic the pattern was down, traffic flow, and it was definitely lower. Unfortunately, now that things are picking up, we're getting a lot of traffic out there. People are still driving crazy. I'm sure all of you are seeing a lot of that as well. And it's just causing all kinds of carnage out there on the highway. So the deadliest counties right now, Greenville's actually at 24, Horry County's at still at 20, Spartanburg is at 16 still. Charleston, I just mentioned, is up to they've leapfrogged into second place at 23, and Lexington County's come up 1. They are sitting at 15. So if we look at just Charleston and Berkeley County, and I go through this, next slide, please. I go through this with the judicial circuits from the SCLEN network. And your judicial circuit has Charleston and Berkeley County there. So out of 276 fatalities, when these numbers were put together, and I say that because right now we're at 301 a week later, but 276 fatalities with Charleston at 5.4, Berkeley at 3.6. So 9% of the fatalities in the state are in Charleston and Berkeley County. So it's certainly it's crazy out there. It really is. Next slide, please. 511 app, you're all aware of that. If anybody you know hasn't got it and they're out there on the roads, they certainly need to get it. It's a free download. It's a quick download. SCDOT does a great job keeping this app up to date and keeping the information on it current. And there's not 328. There's actually more like a little over 500 active cameras on that app, lots of message board signs, construction incidents, congestion routes, and of course, my wife, both my daughters, I made sure they have this app so they've got that bottom line on there. If they break down on the side of the road, you bring the app up, tap on that line, and it GPSs your phone and does a star HP. If you're in a SHEP area, lets them know where you are. If you're not, it lets the patrol know where you are. So they realize and can respond to a vehicle that's disabled on the side of the road. So that's a huge, huge tool for us. Okay, so next slide, please. We have a wonderful lady here that was looking forward to participating with us in these meetings, and she's always welcome to attend these meetings with us. And I will let her introduce herself and go through her presentation. So Anna, the microphone is all yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Anna Wingard, and I'm the president of the Towing and Recovery Association of South Carolina. And I am also with Wingard Towing. We're out of West Columbia, and we have been in business. It will be 50 years next year. And so the reason why I mention that is because I'll talk a little bit later about kind of the trends in the towing industry and how we have really made huge leaps and bounds in technology advancements just in the last 5 to 10 years. There was pretty much no changes at all in several decades past. So I'll touch on some of that a little bit later. But next slide, I want to just come to this opportunity just with an overarching perspective of how the towing industry feels that we have a role at a wreck scene, but also for any other reason to be called out to a public roadway. So the ultimate goal of a towing service at a wreck scene is to safely and efficiently clear roadways so that traffic can continue flowing after any of these reasons: an arrest, a wreck, a breakdown of a vehicle, an abandoned vehicle, a private property impound, whatever the reason may be. So if we work together optimally, if a towing service does, with all other agencies on scene, we can all keep chaos and confusion to a minimum and try to reduce the chances of any additional wrecks, reduce the economic burden that major traffic congestions can cause a local community. And I'll try to bring up that last part and elaborate on it because we do talk a lot in these TIM trainings about what happens at the scene and what you're trying to prevent at the scene, but really and truly there are reverberations of financial burden that a traffic congestion can cause. So you can imagine if you're stuck in traffic for a vehicle that's blocked in a roadway and nobody's working efficiently, and that could have been a 30-minute traffic delay, but it ends up taking, you at a 3-hour delay, then you might miss a flight or a doctor's appointment. And those are all things that actually impact people outside of the actual incident itself. So go on to the next slide, please. So even though I represent the towing industry in South Carolina, I did want to take a step back and talk about towing across the nation, because it's about the same everywhere across the nation, in the fact that there are very, very few towing services that are not run by small family-owned operations. I give the example of the New York City Police Department. They have their own towing service, but that city operates differently than a lot of cities in the entire world. So it helps them to go ahead and have it already, a towing service already built into their government funds and budget and their operations. So you won't see a towing service that, you know, is owned by a large corporation, a franchise, or a subsidiary kind of a situation. So the reason why I bring that up is when you're working with the towing service and you're seeing how one towing service operates, you're probably going to see another towing service operate completely different. And then we all are just completely different from fire, EMS, and police agencies, because those are government agencies. So if you have a rotation on a Monday morning, it might be a one-man, one-truck operation that responds. And then Monday night, you might have a towing service that has a fleet of 30 vehicles with heavy duty, medium duty, light duty, all in their fleet. And then you might even see another business model that's like a body shop that has, you know, a flatbed just to kind of pick up wrecks. So my point in that is that since we all are mainly small family-owned business, you'll see a wide array of business models, which then kind of translates into the fact that there is really no standardization on how to tow a vehicle. There's really no standard procedures from business to business. So we do rely on training opportunities like these to try to standardize how we are responding on the scene and performing our job duties at the scene on a public roadway, so that, again, we can all be very efficient. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go through and talk about really quickly how towing services rely on the various agencies. So the first point of contact that we typically have is going to be from dispatch, which isn't really fire, EMS, or police. It's a separate agency, as you know. So we first and foremost want to know more than just an address to show up to. And sometimes cross streets can be confusing, and I think a lot of dispatchers are supposed to do that, but an actual address with numbers is more helpful. But next step we really want to know about is going to be vehicle type. So whether we're towing a moped versus an 18-wheeler, going to be two completely different trucks to send, two completely different drivers to send. Other pertinent details that we need to know are going to be, is the vehicle 50 foot off into the woods? We need to know that because of the length of our chain. It can be different from tow truck to tow truck. So if it's 50 foot off into the woods and I can only get 25 feet away from it from solid ground, and I have 15 foot of cable, you can imagine the numbers simply just don't add up. So knowing even just if it's off the woods is very important, because we can send the same kind of truck with a longer chain potentially. Need to know if it's hanging off of a bridge, those sorts of things. And we need to know what we're responding to. Is this just an arrest, or is this a wreck? So we also really need to know about alternate route information in regards to mainly wrecks, because we don't want to get ourselves stuck in the very traffic that the wreck has caused. So a lot of times the alternative means that if it's on an interstate or a highway, then we would need to go up to the next exit and back up to the incident, which might mean we need a police escort, We may not, because the roadway may be completely blocked, but these are details that help us get to the scene quicker. And the sooner we respond, typically the sooner the scene can be completely cleared for traffic to continue flowing. So on the reverse side of that, dispatchers need to be relying on the towing industry to report accurate ETA times and not just providing a standard 20-minute ETA every time or 45-minute, whatever it is. We really are trying to push to even the towing industry to provide accurate ETAs, whatever it might be. Next slide, I'll talk about towing and fire departments. So towing services should be relying on fire departments to use their fire truck to block the wreck scene. That's pretty more well known with the public these days, and we really, really appreciate the fire department doing that for us. The other aspect that we rely on fire departments is going to be when they disconnect batteries in cases where they feel a fire might occur post-collision. There have been instances where we have hooked up a vehicle 45 minutes, an hour after the accident happened, and the vehicle catches fire on the back of the flatbed. I don't have enough education to understand why that happens, but a lot of times, if we just simply ask a fire department, have you disconnected it or will you disconnect it, they're happy to do so for us. But also, if a fire department wants to put it on the towing service, that's fine too, and just say, hey, you might want to disconnect that. That's perfectly acceptable as well. I leave this pretty open-ended, and I would love to have some fire department feedback. I did ask a couple people locally, and they didn't give me any information, but any way that a fire department can rely on a towing service, we'd love to kind of input this into our slides for any future use. But the only major thing that we could come up with is really just knowing that towing services are responsible for fully clearing the roadway of any debris. So if there has been a collision and there's a bumper on the road, even if it's been pushed off to the side of the road, that bumper belongs to that vehicle and it needs to go with the vehicle. A towing service does have like or should have strong tape to tape maybe a door shut so it doesn't open while going down the road or anything like that. Or if there's a bumper that needs to be secured, the towing service should have the appropriate supplies in order to bring any debris from the roadway and haul it off with them. Buckets, they should be able to sweep up any glass, that sort of thing, and take it with them. So fire department firemen should be able to say, hey, you need to make sure you're taking that bumper with you or whatever. So that is our responsibility to do that. Next slide is about towing services and police departments. So we, number one, rely on police departments to direct traffic so we can keep our eyes, what we say, hooking and booking. This is hooking and up and hauling away. But so on the flip side of that is a towing service should not be responsible for directing traffic on a public roadway. Again, to reiterate, our role is to remove the vehicle from a public roadway, not telling others where to drive their vehicle. So we also rely on police departments to dispatch us when appropriate. So that would be after an arrest, after a wreck, that sort of thing. Dispatch the appropriate number of towing services out, that sort of thing. But a lot of that's based on your rotation list locally. And then Jeff Allen had mentioned this or in the training earlier, also that the public does have the opportunity given by police departments to choose their own wrecker service if they have one of choice, and if not, to use rotation. We also rely on police departments to dispatch out other necessary services. One example would be a power company, whatever the local power company is. They would really need to be contacted in instances where a vehicle has hit a power line or a power pole. We wouldn't want to put anybody else in additional danger by separating the two. In the reverse for that would be police departments rely on towing services sometimes to just help the motoring public in situations like where jump starts are necessary, unlocking vehicles. And I almost didn't put this on the slide, but I want to preface it with the fact that when I mention unlock cars, I mean in a very non-emergency way. We don't want a police department waiting on us for 30 minutes if there is a child in the vehicle or something like that. This is reiterating what I said before, because police departments also rely on us for this to make sure that we have fully cleared the roadway of any debris, shattered glass, anything that would be associated with that vehicle needs to stay with the vehicle where it's going to the impound lot or a body shop or wherever it's going to its next destination. All right, next slide. So towing services and EMS don't really rely on each other that much. Most of the time, EMS has already handled the people involved in the wreck by the time the towing service arrives. Just from our personal business standpoint, we try to encourage our drivers to give a business card to a paramedic if we see one on scene, just to help alleviate any confusion or frustration if and when that person gets out of the hospital. They can have a little bit of peace of mind knowing that they already know where their car is, kind of thing. All right, let's go to the next slide. So after talking about how towing services rely on the other agencies, just of note, to kind of reiterate what I've already said and touched on a little bit, is the fact that tow operators must locate and report to whoever is in command of the incident as kind of the first thing that they do when they arrive on scene. Because again, towing services should solely be responsible for getting that vehicle out of a roadway or off of even the side of the roadway to get that incident removed completely. And we should under no circumstances be responsible for directing traffic. So we do feel like we are an important part of the overall unified command operation, and we really want to continue to work together to create a focus of safety and quick clearance. And a lot of that is thanks to the help of these TIM trainings. So the next slide, I want to just touch on kind of sort of what's new with towing services. About 10 years ago, we had some trucking software that a bunch of us were using, but it was frustrating because it was really for the long haul trucking industry and not towing. So recently, in about the past 5 years, towing software has really revolutionized in our industry. So it is specific to what we need and helps us handle vehicles full circle, coming in from 911 dispatch to our dispatcher. We can get information a lot quicker and faster. And then we are able to therefore dispatch that information out to our drivers faster, and they can respond to the scene faster. Just even by the use of GPSs, they're able to get to the scene faster as well. So you might have seen in previous years towing services using radio dispatching, but that's pretty rare these days. We also use information that's available to the public, just like Jeff had mentioned before, the 511 app. That has a good many cameras that we are able to utilize. And the South Carolina Highway Patrol AutoCAD is also something else that we utilize to get additional information beyond what the 911 dispatcher has given us. So just in summary, the trainings like these are so rare for the towing industry, and we love being included in these trainings. And if you have any trainings at your local fire station or police station that you feel would be valuable to the towing industry, please extend the invite to your local towing services, because again, what's valuable to the towing industry is only going to benefit everybody involved in order to safely and quickly clear an incident scene on a public roadway. So thank you all so much for listening, and I'm going to leave my email contact information in the chat. So if you have any questions in the future, please reach out and ask me anything specific, general. We have access through the Towing Association to all different businesses across the state. So if I would not be able to get an answer for you, I could definitely ask around. So thank y'all again.
Thanks, Anna. You've been a great partner for a while, and you've certainly been a huge contributor to these series of meetings, and I really appreciate you taking some time, because I know you've got some personal stuff that's keeping you busy, and I know your business is busy. So again, really appreciate you participating in this, and let's make sure out there in the field, if we've got training, if we've got networking going on, let's make sure that we include the tow operators so that we make sure that we're discussing any issues that need to be addressed, and we're all playing off the same sheet of music. That's really, really important. So Anna, I'll be in touch soon. So take care, and I hope the rest of your week is great. I'm now going to pass the microphone and control the comm. I'm going to pass the comm over to Janice, a lady I've known for a while, and she's going to talk to us about some railway issues. Janice, it's all yours.
Great, thank you. I am Janice Cohen, the state coordinator for South Carolina Operation Lifesaver. And our mission is to share railroad safety education to the public in South Carolina, but also to make sure that our first responders, traffic incident management are also doing their jobs safely when it comes to railroad crossings and tracks. For instance, sirens can drown out the sound of the train approaching, possibly if you're responding to an incident. So you need to be extra aware when crossing those railroad tracks, despite whether you're responding to an incident at the railroad tracks, but if you have to cross those to get somewhere else. Also making sure that you contact the railroad despite the situation, whether it's a crash or an arrest, or even if there's just a festival in your community, letting that railroad know so that that wonderful festival doesn't turn into a bad event with higher numbers of people in the area. Just let the railroads know that those might be going on. Also considering what you're driving when you're responding to these incidents. If you are with a tow company and you're towing a car, then you need to remember that when you cross that track somewhere, the traffic ahead may stop, and then you might have to stop, and you just want to make sure you're not straddling the railroad track. Or if you're in a fire truck, that could be larger and longer as well than your average car that you might travel in. So just be mindful that you need to make sure you're clearing that track all the way. And then despite the type of work that you may be doing, if it's ever near the rail, just not parking near the railroad tracks. We don't want to create a incident that might be worse than what you're responding to. Because as you can imagine, any incident involving a train is very, very tragic and has devastating outcomes. This is an example of a motor vehicle train collision. In this particular case, you can see the devastation, but this involves an Amtrak train, which is a relatively light train when you compare it to the freight trains that we see most of the time in South Carolina. The thing I question when I see this picture is, where did this incident happen? It just shows the force of the impact when you look down the side, the right-hand side of the train, and you cannot see the intersection that the car was crossing the railroad tracks. So these trains are heavy. We need to make sure we're staying out of the path of those trains. And unfortunately, every 3 hours, a person or motor vehicle is hit by a train. And these have such devastating outcomes that include the human factor, injuries and fatalities, of course, property damage to the vehicle or person or a bicycle, but also, of course, to the train, And then the environmental issue that you could have, despite, depending on what type of materials the train is carrying. If it's hazardous materials, then we have a whole nother situation on our hands if we have a derailment. You can see in 2019, unfortunately, we had a slight uptick in our crashes, up to 60. But overall, we have been very happy to report an 83% reduction in crashes in South Carolina over a 40-year history, and as well nationally over a 50-year history. Next year is our 50th anniversary as a program for Operation Lifesaver. We have been sharing across the nation for 50 years our railroad safety information. And these numbers have come down because of partners such as you who get out into the communities when you're not responding to an incident, but you're making sure that people are aware of the train tracks, the signs and signals, obeying those. And then, of course, those in law enforcement, if you see them not obeying them, helping us out a little bit by trying to educate the people that they need to abide by the signals and signs that are at railroad crossings. 2020, of course, was an unusual year for all of us, but our incidents were reduced due to fewer people on the road, fewer people traveling, a lot of people working from home.
I think we may have just lost Janice. Technical difficulties. We'll give her a second, see if she comes back.
Yeah, I know my internet's been going in and out. There've been some really bad internet issues around the Midlands lately. So yeah, let's give it a minute. Gives me a second to look after a couple things. I know Rick Dangerfield is in the program here, and I just want to make sure that he gets super thanks for being the go-to guy down in this area. A lot of what we do down there with the training and the meetings and stuff, Rick's a big part of that. So I just wanted to make sure to give a shout out to Rick. Rick, thanks for all of your effort up to now, and hopefully we can keep working together from this point on. So just wanted to make sure to mention that. All right, Janice just let me know that her computer just died for some reason, and she's trying to reboot. Oh, she's back. Okay, well, I won't go to the next part. We'll let Janice kick back in here.
Sorry about that. It just all of a sudden died on me. Here we go. I hope all of you can hear me. Can you?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, great. My computer just completely stopped working and I had to reboot. I don't know what happened there. But anyway, we did have a reduction quite drastically in 2020. We anticipate as people get back on the roads more, those numbers will go up. So we'll have to double our efforts to try to reduce these crashes from happening. Our trespassing incidents also had a dip. And again, we still need to get out there and remind people not to use those railroad tracks as sidewalks and shortcuts to locations that they're going. So how do we do this? We try to prevent these incidents from happening by letting people know anytime is train time. As far as your responsibilities in traffic incident management, incidents happen 24 hours a day. Well, trains run 24 hours a day as well. So if you are responding to something, just be mindful that 365 days a year, those trains will still be there and can be there at any time of the day or night. Of course, trains don't have steering wheels, so we do remind the public that it's in our hands to stay out of the path of the train. They can't swerve left or right to avoid an incident, so it's up to us to keep out of the way of the train. And trains can't stop quickly. They weigh a lot more than our vehicles do, so it takes them a lot longer to stop. Your average car takes about 200 feet. A tractor trailer about 300 feet or 1 football field. A passenger train about 2 football fields. But our average trains, the freight trains that we see most of the time here in South Carolina, take 5,280 feet or more, which is the equivalent of 1 mile or the distance of 18 football fields. And train engineers simply cannot see the end of 18 football fields or a mile to know that there's a vehicle or something on the track, so they wouldn't know to go ahead and start trying to brake in emergency situation. So we just really need to make sure we're staying out of the path of the train. So we have a weight ratio in Operation Lifesaver of 2,000 to 1. Excuse me, 4,000 to 1. You have a 12 million pound train compared to a car. It's the same weight ratio as a car is to a soda can. And of course, you can visually see what happens when you roll over that can. It has the same type of impact. These trains are heavy and so much heavier than the vehicle that they may be impacting. And we talk about a truck on the roadways, which typically is the heavier item. But when involved in a train crash, of course, that train does so.
I love electronics. We rely on electronics so much. Anyway, had the same thing happen. I was in a Zoom meeting with MAD. We have our annual Walk Like Mad event Saturday at the Police Academy. And about 10 minutes into it, my computer died, and that was the end of that. So anyway, this seems to be a trend lately. Unfortunately, that's one of the problems with all these online meetings. At least when we get together face to face, hopefully nobody dies and we get to continue the meetings. Knock on wood. So let's go into the handling the media portion of this, and we'll continue on from there. Can you bring that up, Amy?
Yep.
Thank you, ma'am. Want to thank Amy too. She's been great. She's in our Georgia division, and she's been helping us with this program this week. And without Amy's assistance and help, we'd have been in trouble. So, of course, if I don't have help, I'm in trouble all the time, but that goes beyond saying. Anyway, just a real quick, brief presentation here on the media. I was a PIO for 10 years. I handled a lot of incidents with my department up here in the Midlands. We, 6-lane interstates right down to 2-lane rural roads. We had a little bit of everything and anything, just like the rest of you. So the next slide is going to show a picture. This is southbound I-75 in the Naples, Florida area. You can see there's an incident on the southbound side. You got the cones set up. They're transitioning traffic from lane 3 into 2 and 1. So we have a problem on the southbound side. What the media has done by pulling over on the left shoulder on the northbound side and putting up that crane is they've created a problem that was not there on the northbound side. And you can see the traffic queue starting to build up behind that media van. Next slide, please. We're now downstream from the wreck scene, looking at the wide open flow of traffic coming away from the coming away from the incident, and you can see the heavy traffic queue that's built up going up to that media van. Janice, I see you're back. We'll get to you in just a second here. So you can see the queue built up. Now, if we remove that van, and that's the next slide, you can see what happens to the traffic on the northbound side. It starts flowing right away. So what does this tell us? We've got to have relationships with the media. We need to get to know them. We need to discuss where they should be, where they shouldn't be. And this all goes together with these meetings. When we have these meetings, not a bad idea to get together with all of our disciplines as well as the media. And we need to, there are certain things that we've got to take into consideration. Go to the next slide, please, Amy. Always expect for the media to arrive. I mean, the bad ones, you know, they're going to show up. So we plan a staging area. They have a job to do and a boss to report to. And if we don't give them information, they're going to find a story. They're good interviews. They're going to talk to the witnesses and people that have got pictures and videos on their phones, and they're going to have to put something together. So we need to make sure we're giving them the correct information. And that information, if it's reported correctly, will do nothing but help us. And they can also promote things like slow down, move over. That's such a critical thing these days. Next slide, please. We can use social media. We can put out an initial post and regular follow-up posts. We can tell them where to stage, where to meet the PIO on scene. And fire, EMS, law enforcement. Their EMD has some basic PIO training out there that's absolutely free. Very, very beneficial. Suggests that if you don't have a designated PIO who responds to all of these things, and even if you do, there will be times when that PIO may be on vacation or training or at a meeting somewhere. Have battalion chiefs or have squad sergeants or corporals, have somebody go through this basic PIO training, because we don't want to give them that no comment response. We want to make sure that the flow of information and the tone of the story is correct from that incident scene. So that's extremely important. Before we go to the next slide, Janice, you back?
I am.
Okay. What?
I think my computer's overheating is what I figured out, but I can try to do just 2 more slides and then I'll just give it back to you.
Go right ahead.
I'm going to do my best here. Okay, all right. So I am just going to switch down to the next slide real quickly, because this is the most important aspect, is what to do in case of an emergency. And of course, that's to get out of the vehicle. We tell people that in our presentations, but also if you're responding to a location of an emergency, please just make sure that anybody that may still be in their car gets out immediately. And then of course, if you were there, don't ever try to restart it or move it until we have contacted the railroad. If someone is stuck or stalled on the tracks, of course, get out immediately, but we want them to run if the train is approaching towards the train, but out at a 45-degree angle. And of course, that is to prevent any debris field on the other side from hitting those people. So make sure that we are going towards the train, but at a 45-degree angle. If no train is approaching, we still, of course, want someone to get out, because you never know when a train might come through your community, and get away from the tracks. If they don't think that there's a train approaching and they can get to the location and find this emergency notification system sign, that is the safest and fastest way to alert the railroad that there's a situation on the railroad tracks. Call that 1-800 number that's posted on the crossing itself. This is an example of the 1-800 number. They will be particular to each crossing, making sure that you're contacting the correct railroad. So call the number that's posted at the crossing, and then give them the crossing identification number, which is the 6 numbers and 1 letter. That is the physical address for that railroad crossing and no other crossing in the United States. And I'm going to just skip through the other signs and hope I don't get cut off here with my computer. The other signs you'll see are the advanced round warning sign approaching the crossing. You'll have the pavement markings. of course, as well as the double yellow line, which indicates a no passing zone like other intersections that you encounter. And then, of course, you have the crossbuck sign itself at the crossing. That is a regulatory sign. So if you are in law enforcement and you see someone dart straight in front of a train with the train blowing its horn and it's on your side, we'd love for you to give them a little bit of education that trying to beat a train is an unsafe maneuver. And of course, you have the stop line painted at the crossing. By law, you have to stop no closer than 15 and no further than 50 feet from the crossing itself. One other passive sign that may be seen at the crossing is a stop sign, a physical stop sign, and that means stop like any other intersection. The active warning signs that we have are bells and lights, and bells, lights, and gates. The bells and lights indicate stopping, just like a stop sign does, and waiting for that train to pass. You'll see here the 3-track sign as well. That sign indicates there are 3 tracks at that crossing, which means there could be 3 trains. So if someone's waiting for the train to pass, you need to make sure you can see clearly down all the tracks before going across. And then the other active warning device, of course, are the gates that could come down. It's illegal to drive around those gates. It's a 4-point violation. And again, if you're in law enforcement and that person's coming to your side, we would appreciate you letting them know how dangerous that situation can be. And you just never want to put yourself at risk or those in your vehicle. And the reason we don't want you to stop any closer than 15 feet is the trains do overhang by 3 feet. So also when we talked about don't park near the rail if you're responding to an incident, the rail is 3 feet shy of each side of the train, but then it also could have straps and chains or other things coming off of the train. So we want that safe buffer of at least 15 feet. We're running a campaign right now with the weather turning better about rails and recreation do not mix. And that's, again, reminding people of the length of their vehicle if they're towing something or driving something longer during the nice weather like a camper or boat, just making sure you can get that entire vehicle across to the other side with that 15 feet barrier. We also do promote railroad safety in trespassing. Walking on railroad tracks is against the law. Using them as a shortcut is against the law. Fishing on them or hunting on them is also against the law and extremely dangerous. You're concentrating on your recreational activity, not so much as whether a train is approaching. And trains can be quite quiet. They don't have the clickety-clack sound that we once remembered because the rail is continuously welded. So it's actually quite quiet. And if you're out in a location such as a trestle, you would not hear the train normally blow its whistle. So you want to make sure that you're not standing on that location. And of course, it's against the law. Also, recreational vehicles can drown out the sound of a train approaching. But we do want you to get out and enjoy the wonderful weather in South Carolina. It's a beautiful state, and we appreciate all that you do in your own communities. If you are interested in joining our team, we would be delighted to have you become a volunteer for Operation Lifesaver and share our railroad safety information to the citizens in your area. You just go to www.oli.org and click the volunteer tab at the top of the screen. There will be an application for you to fill out. I will get a copy of that and I will approve that. Then there will be a link sent to you for an online education link, and you will do that. That takes about an hour. Followed by that, we will schedule a Zoom meeting to go through our materials, where they're located, how you can access that on our internet. So thank you so much again for what you do. And thank you, Jeff. And I apologize for the computer issue. I'm holding it off of the table to make sure air gets under it so it doesn't turn off again. I think it just overheated a couple times. I don't know why, but thank you again. And you guys be safe out there.
Janice, thanks. I share your grief. Went through it the other night. But anyway, lots of fun. Janice, Anna, don't know if Anna's still on here or not, but Janice, Anna, and of course, Amy, thank you very much. You three ladies have really helped make the last 2 weeks sensational for information and a nice, good, smooth, easy flow of information. What else have we got here? I guess really we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. You can go to the sctimnetwork.com down in the lower right there, and you can look at any of our training that's coming up, or when we get into the meetings, of course, they'll all be listed on there, and that's the link that you click on to register for any of that stuff. It's very important. And, you know, everyone that's out there, contact me or get a hold of Rick. I mean, if we need to schedule some classes, or if you've got some ideas, or if you'd like to offer meeting facilities or training facilities, I mean, any of that information would be great to pass along. The other thing that I would ask you is, I'm looking at mid-October through mid-November for the in-person TIM team meetings in the morning and then training possibly in the afternoon. If you are aware of any conferences, law enforcement, fire, EMS, any conferences that might conflict with mid-October to mid-November, please let me know, because now's the time for us to adjust dates if we're going to look at scheduling some of this stuff. So, and I'll go through some of the websites and check for some of the conferences as well. The individuals that are involved in this program statewide, Ray Parker is the gentleman at South Carolina Department of Transportation. He's the traffic incident management coordinator, and he's the person that I go to for okays or no, we can't do that or whatever. And he's a good guy to work with, and we've been working closely together for a while. And then you've got my information there. Ray's out of Columbia. I'm here in Irmo in the Midlands, even though you see a 470 area code on my cell phone, but you've got my email, you've got my phone number. If there's anything at all that I can assist you with in the traffic incident management area, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. So that's it. This is the wrap up of our 10 meetings, and to all of you who have joined us, thank you very much, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye for now. Stay safe.